For this project, we're going to be creating an image downloader. And if we run this script, it's going to allow us to enter a URL. So this URL should contain an image, and I'm just going to paste this in. And this is just something from Google. I wanted to search for an apple. And as you can see around here, there's a redapple.jpg. So we're all set to go with that. And then we just need to give it a name. So I'll call this apple image and tap on enter. Then it's going to download it and it's going to tell us whether it was downloaded successfully. So with that being done, we can open our folder, and inside images, we'll see this apple image that I searched for on Google. And it's actually quite a cool project because it's going to take some elements from the URL. For example, there's the JPEG part, which it appended to our image over here. So as you can see, downloaded images/appleimage.jpg. So we actually were able to infer that just by entering a URL. But to get started, we're going to create a new empty project. And in here, we need to open up the terminal and type in pip install requests. So we can make that request and actually get the data back from the website. Now inside our folder, we're going to create a directory called images. So we don't convolute our folder with a lot of random images. We just want them to be in one place for this example. So we have this image folder, but I'm going to close that since we won't use it for quite a bit. And next we're going to import OS and import requests. Now the first function we're going to create is called getExtension, because when we enter a URL, inside the URL, there should be a section that holds either .png, .jpeg, .gif, .svg. It should have some sort of extension, and we want to extract that from the image URL. So image URL of type string, which will return to us a string or none, depending on whether it has an extension that we can grab or not. Then we have to create a variable called extensions of type list of string. And this will equal a list of all the extensions that we want to recognize. For example, .png, .jpeg, and of course there's the other version, .jpeg, and we have .gif or GIF, and finally .svg. And if you want to include more extensions, just add them inside here so it can recognize more. But I'm going to only cover the basic 5. And the rest is quite easy. So for extension in extensions, we're going to check if the extension is in image URL. And if it is, we're just going to return the extension. So we'll know exactly which extension it contains, so we can actually download the image in the correct format. And that's all we have to do here. I mean, if it doesn't find anything here, functions by default are going to return none, so we don't have to do anything. If this doesn't return anything, we will get none back. Under that, we need to download the image. So def download image, and here we're going to take a image URL of type string, a name that we're going to name it of type string, and the folder that we want to place it inside, which will be of type string and set to none initially in case we don't really care about placing it in a folder. So that's optional, of course, for the user. I think it's a better experience. But with that, we can check if the extension, and we're going to use the walrus operator again. So if the extension is going to get an extension, we're going to use it. And before we use it, we need to check if there is a folder to put it in. But as soon as we have the check, we can say, okay, if there's a folder, we're going to create an image name of type string, and we're going to format this by placing in the folder / the name and the extension. So we're appending the extension, if there is an extension, to the end of the name that we gave this file and placing it in a folder. Else, we're going to create the same image name of type string, and we're going to say, okay, this is just going to contain the name and the extension, and it's not going to be placed inside a folder. But what happens if all of this goes wrong? Well, then we're going to just raise an exception, because we shouldn't be able to move on if we cannot find the correct extension. So here we'll type in image extension could not be located. So that means you're going to have to add some more extensions here, or you're going to have to change something. Below this, we can check if OS path is file. So this just checks whether this image name file path actually exists or whether there is a file that exists under this image name. And if that does happen, we don't want to overwrite it. We just want to raise an exception that the name we gave it already exists. So we should not overwrite it. So exception, file name already exists. Because in the current state, if we give it the same name as another image, it's just going to overwrite that and you will never know why the previous image disappeared. Or I mean, you will know, but it's going to be hard for users to know. So here we can add a comment, check if name already exists. And sometimes I just like to add comments to split functionality up. Usually a function should not contain too much functionality, but in the worst case scenarios, I do like having comments because it shows that, okay, this is one block of functionality. Now we have another block of functionality. It just makes it easier. Finally, we're going to download the image. So we'll type in download image so that we can try the following. And inside here, we're going to grab some image content, which is going to be of type bytes this time. And that's going to equal requests.get image URL.content. And that's going to return to us the bytes of the image. Now with open image name in write bytes mode as handler, because we need to create a handler for this, we're going to call that handler and type in write and image content. We want to write that image content, and we are writing that image content to this file path. Then we can print a friendly message if it goes well that the user downloaded the following file. So quotation marks and image name followed by successfully. So everybody's happy. And of course we need to finish with an accept block which accepts exception as E because we don't really know what's going to happen. And we're going to print error with the error. So we can fix that in case anything pops up, but at least we have a safety mechanism. And that's actually all we need to get this script up and running. So now we can type in if name is equal to main, and all that's left to do is to get the input URL, which is going to be of type string. And that's going to take the input from the user that says enter a URL. And I'm going to duplicate this to save some time, I hope. We're going to get an input name that says, what would you like to name it? So the user can name the file. Then we will print downloading to show that the program's actually processing something. And finally, we will call download image with the input URL. And we need to give the name an input name. And the folder is going to be the one we created, images. So it should be exactly the same name as this one over here, or else it's going to throw an error that there is no folder named whatever you named it. So it has to match a certain folder. But I'm going to copy a link or a URL from my other project, and I'm going to run this script. So first we will enter this URL, which is going to give us an SVG of Python, theoretically, and we'll just name it Python potato. And when we tap on enter, it should save it to our image folder. So if we tap on this, we now have the SVG of the Python logo. But let's go back to main, and this time I'm going to just get rid of the folder to show you what happens. So if we rerun this and add the Python logo, we say Python logo and tap on download, it's still going to download it, but it's now going to store it in the main folder. So that can get quite messy, and I much prefer to have it inside a folder. So let's change it back one more time, and let's try one more. Let's enter this other URL that I have, and this is going to be from Wallhaven. They have a lot of cool HD wallpapers. Definitely recommend it if you're looking for a cool wallpaper. And we'll tap on enter and we'll name it something. And it's going to download it. It took a bit longer, but it got it. And now we have something.jpg. And if we open our image folder again, we should have a cool image of this astronaut who's just taking a nap. But that was the entire project. And something really cool about this function is that if you have an API or a list of URLs that you want to download images from, you can easily do it just using this function over and over. Of course, you might have to get more creative with how you're going to name the files, especially if you're doing it automatically, but I'm going to leave that as a homework problem for yourself. Just create a list of image URLs, loop through them, and try to give them names automatically.